that everybody in business and the property industry or the housing sector is no exception. Um, Requires, the relevant financial resources to be able to implement any project of any kind, and the ability to raise those financial resources is key. Um, as a state housing company, unfortunately, we were not capitalized when we were converted from a corporation to a company. In the past, the organization was run as a public corporation and it was funded from central government budget. So every year there was an allocation when the minister in charge of finance rates the budget, the annual budget. There's a provision for the sector ministry that is allocated to the state housing company, and that is the funding that was available to build, estates. And this was evident in some of the earlier estates that we constructed. If you look at Laponi, Ringway, Usu, even Kanda, you see all these, communities had tarred roads, drains, and some of them have even changed. And we are about to start that development. We are starting at Kanda, and we'll continue to Latibiokoshi. So, in order to to answer your question, uh, you know, does merging or companies coming together to realize synergies in housing delivery, does it have a place in our space? And the question is absolutely. Absolutely, I think this is where a lot of the opportunities are coming. I would make some suggestions to my colleagues and the stakeholders within the industry that whilst we accept that we need to renew our cities and build more houses, we should look at where capacity is. The capacity exists in the areas where there is social cohesion and economic activity. When we start going to the hinterlands to go and tear down the green belt and build new houses, it comes with a lot of challenges that we must overcome. But if we concentrate on the urban area and we also uphold the virtues of social housing, we realize that the opportunity exists for us to exhaust the potential within the urban space. We need to consider vertical development, we need to upgrade our infrastructure, and we need to look at how we can bring people closer to where they are living their daily bread exists. We need to grow organically. So whereas the potential exists in the urban centers, we need to make sure that we are consulting, we are using the right policy tools, and then the right relationships, including the public-private partnership. I believe that we have not actually touched the main dish when it comes to housing. And my hope is that with the kind of personalities that you've got, with the kind of organizations that are involved in this program, all the ingredients are there. Finally, I would like to also mention that indeed we as a people stand to gain more when we invest into housing. Housing has a minimum annual equity appreciation of double digits, between 15 to 20%. And if we are investing a lot there, especially with the passage of the new Pensions Act, the development of the rate system, we have a lot of things going for us. And I can only be very positive. I believe that the State Housing Company has a role to play, especially when it comes to areas regarding low-income households. We have the lowest value of it. Yes. I think that's a very important question because I would like to start from the fact that no rational business person invests into a business that they don't understand. And I think when it comes to housing in particular, you see the property industry, this is the real estate sector, uh, sometimes it's misconstrued as the same as a housing. They all provide property, but property for a different purpose. You see, when you're into real estate, your main motivation is to create value hold, buy or sell. That's real estate. But when it comes to housing, there's a commitment to house people. As the word suggests, housing is a continuous, terms.
Yeah.
Housing. So it means that you are not just engaged.
Be an ongoing process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is what should inform policy, and this is what is supposed to inform action. Now, the finance sector needs to understand this, because one of the critical issues regarding the difference between housing and real estate is that one can be financed with just short-term finance and it will be fine once it's being handled by a professional who has looked at the location, the design, the market segment, and the pricing. When these things are all there, real estate is quick turnaround. They make their money and that's all they are interested in. When you come to housing, the considerations are different. It is important that the industry understands this. In this industry, it is important that banking sector understands these details so that when they are going to make decisions, they're well informed. Unfortunately, I must say with humility that we still have a lot to catch up on when it comes to understanding housing. That's why we haven't been able to house ourselves adequately. We have left, housing issues to the market, and when the market determines who builds housing and for what price and who has access to it, we eliminate a lot of people. The active primary market of housing in this country, about 80% of it cannot afford to buy their own house. That is significant, and there's a reason why our housing deficit is deepening. We must stop that. We must use policy intervention, and we must have some people who can come together to really chart the forward. And the good news is that we have the people here in Ghana. It's a matter of leadership, it's a matter of creating the right platform. And so the banking and finance industry needs that information. They need to be guided. They need to understand these details. But when you're housing people, it doesn't mean that, that there's no money, so we shouldn't look at it. They should see the necessity, the socio-economic benefits. You need to understand that your requirements are that of long-term financing. One thing I can tell you straight away is that when you go to England, America, and the advanced communities where they have been successful at housing, the markets are well defined. And you can walk in and get a 30-year mortgage, 25-year mortgage. And these are supposed to be the most affluent societies in the world. So does it make sense that where we are deprived and we have challenges with income and job creation and all the rest, we rather have short-term mortgages, which obviously translates into higher repayment amounts? So you see, there's an imbalance here.
Serious one.
There's an imbalance. Now, the finance sector, you cannot blame them because they have to understand it. For them, they sell money, and the quicker they can turn it around, the better, the more money they can make. So they need to know, and it has to be a policy that allows them to keep a portion of their investments in a long-term fund. Now we have a pensions act that really sets aside some monies for the property market. But what percentage of it should go into housing? As I've said to you, we need to understand the differences. Otherwise, we think we're doing the same thing. We're not. A lot of people say we're doing real estate, we are housing. They're not the same. And that is why you can never compare greater and state housing. And when you convert state housing into a company, are you trying to turn it into a real estate company? Or you still want it to be housing the people? The people are the main resources of this country. The best way to say our resources is to invest in our people, making sure that we provide access to food, shelter, and clothing. Housing is very critical.
So for you, if I understand this very point you have made, what you are saying is that the ability for financial institutions to support developers lies in the understanding,
of course,
of
the requirements,
exactly,
the differences
between, for example, housing and then real estate,
yes.
So that when they are providing certain facilities or more, they can know how to peg their figures and all that.
very quickly that we need to look at the right policy interventions, because that is what allows us to do things. Policy says that this is the plan of what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it, and there's a general consensus on the matter, and we live by it. I think the policy angle, I must say that I have published a book, one of my books. It's called Social Housing and Poverty Strategies, and it talks about how we can harness the resources that are available to us and invest it into housing, making sure that all income levels have access. And then how do you actualize this? Since my appointment by the State Housing Company, I have been able to provide leadership together with the board and management and the staff to practicalize some of these ideas that I shared. And it will interest you to know that we tightened our management. We have raised a lot of funds, as I mentioned. The existing affordable housing at Boteman, we were the first to go and complete 72 of it. We use our internally generated funds, and that is our commitment to the lower income bracket. As I mentioned earlier on, also through our own PPP arrangements, we have through a development partnership arrangement, as well as contracts that we awarded, we have generated our own income. We've invested into a middle income housing at Adenta, the State Housing Gardens or Little London project, which has produced over 70 units as well. We have also done detached properties and semi-detached at Adenta. Again, we have put infrastructure in place of these projects. And so I believe that if you look at some of these things that we've been able to do between 2010 and now, giving a bigger platform, giving greater collaboration, giving greater policy interventions, the state housing and other players within the industry can effectively tackle our housing challenges. I think that the way really is to look at the potential within our urban centers across the country. How can we develop going upstairs in terms of vertical development? How can we improve our roads, our drains? How can we improve also, our hospitals and schools, traffic situation? We need to look at all this so that we can make our cities and our capital towns more competitive. It is only when we have done quite a bit that we can look at, creating new communities. Now, having said that, as a housing practitioner, I can tell you that there's still a potential to create new cities, but these cities must be driven by economic activity. Because if you don't take the economic activity that would bring social groupings together and go and build in the per-urban and rural areas, you're going to struggle to actually pay for that project. People go and live there, and within a short time they realize that commuting to come and earn a living
business
becomes a problem. So they quickly run back, and it's not going to. So there's a way where we create human settlements, and some of these things should be done scientifically. It should be informed by data. We need to do research, and that is why you may have seen me talking about housing data about a week ago in the newspapers and all the rest of it. I think we have a lot going for us. Let us involve our academic institutions, the educational institutions, tertiary institutions. Let us try and harness stakeholder participation. Let us educate ourselves. Let us bring the financiers on board, and let us engage more with policy makers so that we can create another property boom. It happened in Dubai, in the US, and Europe, and it's time for Africa. But as to whether we see Ghana as a potentially 30 billion, housing, project, or 300,000 Ghana cedis, project, depends on how far we are seeing and how we are working together. I believe working together will help us to achieve quite a lot. And I'm very positive and optimistic.
All right. Okay. Doc, we thank you very much. I don't know if there is anything that you have to say which I've not asked you. You can add that. Yeah.
Well, I would like to add that increasingly as a people, we do have a collective responsibility to find a solution to our socioeconomic challenges that started long ago. Sometimes it's very easy to simplify it to the political calendar. And I think much as I wouldn't want to veer into politics, I think it's very important that I put in a record that yes, we should allow the politicians to do their politicking because that's their job. But we have technocrats and people of other vocation that have a lot to do in terms of contribution towards alleviating our socioeconomic challenges. And I think we should be able to harness that potential so that while the politicians are doing their bit, all other stakeholders will do their bit so that we can get better results. If we don't change it and we allow everything to be put at the doorstep of politicians, one day we'll realize that we wake up and we've mortgaged the whole country. And I'm saying this, in a light-hearted manner, but seriously speaking, without taking personal and collective responsibility to contribute our quota to solving our problems in this country, we'll be waiting for a very long time. I hope and pray we don't get to that, because I sincerely believe that housing, especially social housing, provides a catalyst for socio-economic development. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to working with my colleagues who have been also nominated and